friend John Roberts is at the back of the room. John, raise your hand, please. John is our grassroots coordinator, and he has been on board with me since about day 4 of my chairmanship. And I have given John the task of filling up my Thursdays and Fridays with committed to county meetings. Now, you'll notice that this is a Tuesday night. We've made an exception because Washington County, being the birthplace of Republican politics in Oklahoma, is very special to us. And Grace is obviously very special to us, and so we wanted to come here on a Tuesday night because that's kind of what fit best. Yes, I'm kind of buttering her up and you know, expressing my appreciation to her because Grace does a wonderful job. And let's give her a great big round of applause. You know, we were talking about you know, on the way over here about our strong counties here in Oklahoma, and obviously Washington County is one of the backbones of Oklahoma. Oklahoma is the reddest of the red, and when you think about the reddest of the red, and we talk about the counties that are behind that, we think very fondly here of Bartlesville. We think very fondly of Washington County and what you guys stand for, and the fact that you're so reliable. And we very much appreciate that at the Oklahoma Republican Party, what you guys stand for. Now, if you've read my bio, I have found that I oftentimes need to do a little bit of clarification on my bio. Yes, I'm from Lexington, Oklahoma. And most of the time whenever I acknowledge that I'm from Lexington, most people will say, okay, there's a prison in Lexington, I believe. And yes, they're correct. Actually, there are 2 prisons in Oklahoma. So hopefully, as a volunteer, okay. And that being said, 2 prisons in Lexington. I have often found that it's important to go ahead and clarify that I am not here on work release. So just to kind of set your minds at ease. However, after saying that one time at one of our meetings, an individual mentioned that, well, if you were, you would be qualified to be the Democratic chair. So I've got to give a little bit of red meat here at the start, right, to kind of get you guys fired up. But all that being said, there were 2 sailors, Australian sailors as a matter of fact, and they were stationed in London during World War II. And those 2 sailors got a pass, and they decided to go into town and see the sights. And as young sailors in their 20s are wont to do, in seeing the sights, they stumbled upon a tavern. Went in the tavern, and as you might imagine, they imbibed a little too much of the local flavor. And then they happened to look at the clock and found out, we might ought to get back to the barracks. We're going to get in trouble. The only problem was it was dark, and they stepped into a very dense London fog. And I thought, oh boy, are we in a fix? But to the rescue comes Winston Churchill. Comes walking up, and one of the sailors says, hey bloke, do you know where we are? And Winston's kind of miffed that they don't realize who they're addressing. And Winston says to them, do you know who I am? And one sailor looks to the other and says, well, are we in a really big fix now because we don't know where we are and he doesn't know who he is. And that to me would describe a conservative Democrat in Oklahoma because they don't know where they are and they don't know what their party stands for if they are still affiliated with such. And so I view one of my main jobs as the Oklahoma Republican chairman to be the chief cheerleader for the Oklahoma Republican Party and to champion our cause of conservatism because I firmly believe that real conservatism still sells. We don't need to change our message. We just need to improve the delivery of our message. That's all there is that we have to do. And anyone that says that we've got to, quote-unquote, expand the tent and change what we stand for, I bring up a guy like Scott Walker, who's the governor of Wisconsin, who, in my opinion, is in the 3rd most liberal state in the union. And Scott Walker is a conservative. He would fit right in Oklahoma, and yet he can get elected in a place like Wisconsin. And he can take on the unions. And he can come in and he can cut regulation and he can cut tax rates. And yes, cutting tax rates will oftentimes result in lower revenues for the short term, but over the long term, I believe that we are going to do a better job of spending that money than a bureaucrat is going to. And over the long term, the economy is going to expand. In so doing, with an expanding economy, you're going to actually have expanding revenues. So for the long term, I feel like the lower tax rates can go, the better off we're going to be. Scott Walker has proven that through the turnaround that we're seeing in Wisconsin. Now, I'm not standing here as to be an apologist or an advocate for Governor Walker. I'm just trying to use him as an example of what conservatism can mean. Because in Oklahoma, we've been in existence for 107 years now. And for 94% of our statehood, we were completely controlled by Democrats. Completely controlled by Democrats. And so if you don't like the fact that our roads and bridges are bumpy and they aren't what they ought to be, if you don't like the fact that our state capitol has not been properly maintained, if you don't like the fact that our pension systems are $33 billion, let me say that again, $33 billion underfunded, every single bit of that is a Democratic problem. It is a problem that the Democratic Party failed to address. And it was absolutely irresponsible for them to do so. And as a Republican Party, we have to address that, and we have to lay that at their feet and remind people and put things in perspective. Because I'm sick and tired of Republican bashing, guys. I'm here to be the chief cheerleader for the party. We have enough watchdogs. We have the media out there, and we actually have leaders that are doing a good job. And we are blessed with great leadership at the federal level. Okay? It's a great comfort to know as your chairman that I don't have to worry about waking up in the morning and having a microphone shoved in front of my face because of some moral issue with our delegation or with our statewide. Because they're all moral people. They're good people. They're God-fearing people. Okay? And no, I don't agree with them all the time on anything. But I look in hindsight at myself. I tend to disagree with my own personal decisions about 10% of the time in hindsight. So I try not to hold our elected officials to a higher standard than I would hold myself to. But at the same time, we have to look at the perspective of, we have this concept out there called Rhino, Republican in name only. Sick and tired of it. Okay? Republican in name only, most of the time those guys are going to score 65% on a conservative index. Yet the most conservative Democrat is going to score about a 45 most of the time. No matter which way you cut it, 65% is always greater than 45%. I don't care what you say. Okay? So we're blessed with outstanding leadership in our state legislature. We're blessed with outstanding leadership on a statewide level. We're blessed with outstanding leadership at the federal level. And I believe that Oklahoma can be a shining city on the hill for the rest of our country. We have a 2-year plan and a 4-year plan that we want to implement. And that 2-year plan is going to start in October with the promotion of an event on November the 12th called Coffee, Cookies, and Conservatism. Coffee, Cookies, and Conservatism, November 12th. That's the second Tuesday of November, in which we want to serve coffee and cookies in every single precinct in Oklahoma with the goal of discussing conservatism. So we were discussing cleaning baseboards and cleaning underbeds and stuff like that. Yes, ladies, I know. At my house, our house is clean. I can eat off the floor. 5-second rule, I don't have a problem with it at our house because my wife is an exceptional house cleaner. But if I want the house really, really clean, I just invite over company. And then we're going to go to baseboards and there's no danger of having a cobweb anywhere. But ladies, we don't need you to be. I used to use Paula Dean, but I'm not going to use it. Martha Stewart. We don't need you to be Martha Stewart. We don't need you to open up Better Homes and Gardens. Just go buy one of those sleeves of, you just slice them off, the chocolate chip cookies. Or oatmeal and raisin, it doesn't matter. Put on a pot of coffee, open up your home, and invite your neighbors to come in for a discussion over coffee and cookies about conservatism. Because we have to rebuild our grassroots, guys. We have to rebuild our precincts. Government that is closest to us, government that is responsive to us, is interactive in nature. And we've got to get people back in tune with going to city council meetings. We've got to get people back in tune with going to school board meetings and things of that nature. And if we could just get 12 people per precinct to show up, guess what? We just get people to sign up for, one school board meeting and one city council meeting per year, and then take notes about what's going on and share that with the rest of your group, and we can be responsive and we can know what's going on with our local government. And I'm not suggesting that we need to do that for any other reason than we just need to know what's going on. I was talking about this over in Rogers County 2-3 weeks ago, and the gentleman that was in attendance in the audience came up to me afterwards and said, "David, I'm a city councilman. I'm above board in everything that I do. I'm a conservative. We're not trying to pull the wool over anybody's eyes. But with that being said, we handle business completely different when we have an audience. It's just human nature. And sunlight is always the best antiseptic for good government and responsive government. And so we want to get people plugged in at the local level, at the school board level, at the city council level. Because what I've also found is once you get people plugged in there, they also plug in at the state level. They also plug in at the federal level. And that's what good citizenship is all about. The price of freedom is what? The eternal vigilance. Okay? So coffee, cookies, and conservatism is our springboard mechanism to begin talking about that again and to resurrect our precincts and get people plugged in to good government. And from there, we want to tap in and we want to begin to show. I feel like there's a lot of untapped energy within the Tea Party movement still that we can positively channel toward good government. Our activists are they're watching The Blaze and they're watching Fox News and they're listening to talk radio and they're forwarding all these emails around. I know because I get them. But at the same time, we've got to figure out how to actually make that work to where we get good people elected. Now here, I'm preaching to the choir. You guys are doing a fabulous job. But I also would urge you to think about what can we do to help out some other counties that may be close by that aren't as red as Washington County. What can we do to help out Little Dixie? John and I have been over to about half of the counties at this point in time. And we have been, the best way I can think of to describe it is, we've been to Little Dixie and we've seen where Bigfoot lives. I didn't see Bigfoot, but I can promise you that we saw where he lives because the vegetation and the trees are so thick that if he was out there, nobody would have any idea. And we've been all the way out in the Panhandle to Boise City and been to Black Mesa and at many points in between. And hopefully by the middle part of September, we will have covered all 77 counties. And we want to do that because I don't believe in making ivory tower decisions. I believe in getting out and knowing people and knowing what's going on in each county and understanding the strengths and weaknesses. But also, we need to reinstill hope. We're watching too much news. And we're watching too much about what's going on, and there's too much negativity in the environment, and we need to have a real type of hope, guys, which says that we can turn this country around. Because guess what? I was quoting the statistics to you on a state level about how Democrats have been in control for 94% of our statehood. Republicans have only been in control for 6%. They've screwed things up pretty good in a lot of respects when you look at our roads and our pensions and things like that over 90 plus years. I think that Republicans are smart enough, we can probably straighten that out in about a decade. Okay? But it's going to take a little bit of time. And one of the issues that I kind of take to task on that is I had a pretty stark disagreement with OCPA in one of their articles in which they were pretty critical of the legislative session this last time. They're talking about how much our budget has grown over the last 6 or 8 years. I forget what the exact number was. But what they need to take into account is when things are broken and you have to spend a lot of money in order to fix them, you have to spend more money. And that's where I'm coming from and saying, we've got to fund these pensions at some point in time. That's going to require spending more money. We've got to fix our roads and bridges. We've got to fix the Capitol. We've got to do these things because the problems are not going to go away. They're just going to get worse if we don't. And I'm thankful that we have leadership at the Capitol now who is willing to take that on straight head on. And people that want to step up and criticize our legislators don't remember what it was like with Cal Hobson to be pro tem. And I can say that because I'm from Lexington and that's where Cal Hobson's from. Okay? Now I won't go, I probably should go into details as to why he lost the pro tem, but it's an embarrassment to our state that he would ever have been in that position. Well, look at the fact that, we've had several Democratic senators that have been indicted and convicted. We've had, we were trying to figure out a while ago, half of the governors that are Democrat over the last 30 years or so have been indicted and convicted. David Hall, David Walters, to name a few. And so all that being said, the Democratic Party is a damaged brand. And it's time to step forward and show what real conservatism can do and be bold about that. The only thing that I would say as I'm having these conversations with people, the only major complaint that anybody has is they like the direction that we're going, they just want our elected officials to be bolder. Well, guess what? We've got to give them cover so they can be bolder. We need to start showing up to their town hall meetings, not just to criticize, but to compliment and to let them know, hey, you're doing a good job. And it does a lot of good, in my opinion, to stand up if one of our elected officials is doing a good job, to stand up and to tell them why they're doing a good job. And then after that individual sits down, if there's 45 people in the audience and they give them a round of applause for doing so, that gives our elected officials the cover that they need to keep on fighting the good fight. Because guess what? They're getting hammered a lot by the labor unions. They're getting hammered a lot by places like the Tulsa World. Okay? And we need to be a positive influence upon those individuals. And that's what, to me, Republican conservative activism is about. Now, let's go back to the federal level. It's even worse. For the last 60 years, we've only had 7 balanced budgets. But you look at the fact that since Eisenhower, we've only had 2 years in which we had complete control. House, Senate, President. 2 years. Okay? The only way that we're going to fix the legislative ills within our country is to go back to and get, because in my opinion, our problem, the reason why we're where we are, too much liberalism, too much moderation, and too much compromise. Too much liberalism, too much moderation, and too much compromise. We're compromising with liberals when we shouldn't have to. What we've got to do is we've got to get conservatives in the White House, a conservative in the White House. We've got to get a conservative control of the Senate and maintain conservative control of the House. And in so doing, then we don't have to worry about compromising with the liberals, and we can move forward and give conservatism a chance. Because really, if you look at it, it's been the 1920s with Coolidge, the last time that we had real conservatism at the federal level, in my opinion. Okay? And Coolidge is one of my heroes. I love Reagan, but one of my heroes is Coolidge. You study what he did and how he handled it, how he was able to cut tax rates, increase revenues, and at the same time, cut spending. Unreasonable spending. There are core functions of government that we do have to fund. Okay? But our federal government has obviously become a behemoth that is no longer beneficial to us. But that being said, our 2-year plan is we've got to hold on to all the statewide. We've got to be sure that we keep our federal delegation of all Republicans in going back to the Beltway. And we've got to make sure that we hold on to our supermajorities in the House and the Senate. From there, what we've got to do, we're going to have such great momentum this year. It's an unprecedented opportunity for us that we can't let go aside, because we're going to have Jim Inhofe at the top of the ticket, 70-plus approval rating. Mary Fallon, top of the ticket, 70-plus approval rating prior to the tornado, and she's done such a fabulous job of handling that situation. I bet the next time we see polling, she may be pushing 80. But what that's going to do is translate into major coattails in which if we can just get good people on the ballot at the courthouse level, we can kick the Democrats out. And I think that's incredibly important to get the Democrats out. Because we look at scenarios, I'm sick and tired also of this argument of the conservative sheriff who's a Democrat, but he's just that way so that he can get elected. Poppycock. He's pragmatic, he's not principled. That's what they're saying. Because if you look at the Democratic platform and what they stand for, and what they stand for as a party, they would have changed a long time ago, in my opinion. And that being said, the person that can't be trusted on issues like that, they're not going to be trusted on the big issues either, in my opinion. And the problem with that is, if you believe that Obama stands for gun control, I do. I don't think I'm a conspiracy theorist by saying that, but if you believe that Obama stands for gun control, how's he going to implement that? I think that he'll implement it through local law enforcement. And so that being said, in looking at that, it's going to be very important who your local sheriff is.
Absolutely.
It's going to be very important who your district attorney is.
Yep.
Okay? They need to be a conservative Republican. And this is our chance to make sure that we have those individuals in play, and that we have those individuals elected. Because I mean, look no further from a district attorney perspective. Look at what happened to Tom DeLay in Austin, Texas, with the liberal district attorney that was trying to climb the ladder, that pressed trumped-up charges against the majority whip of the House, very powerful person. Tom DeLay, if you know much about his story, he didn't do himself any personal favors, but he did nothing worthy of indictment. And he was run out of office by a liberal district attorney seeking to make a name for himself. So who we have at the courthouse level is incredibly important. And county commissioners, we're blessed. I know. Thank you guys for being here this evening. County commissioners are so much more than just roads and bridges. I know that you guys know that. But it's important to have good conservative leadership at the courthouse level, looking at budget board issues and things of that nature. I don't buy into this argument that there is such a thing as a nonpartisan race, because everything is partisan. Our first vote is our party affiliation. And you're saying something about yourself in the party that you choose to affiliate with. Okay? And so I believe personally that all races should be partisan. And you look no further than what's going on in Tulsa right now with Kathy Taylor and that quote-unquote nonpartisan race, and the fact that she's able to hide behind the cloak. I mean, she's a liberal's liberal. I call her, well, I can go there this time. But I digressed today at lunch a little bit, probably too much. But she's a liberal's liberal. I mean, she's going to be the kind of lady that's going to ban big gulps and ban guns in the city, and crime's going to go up. And I mean, in essence, when she was mayor the last time, she did the equivalent of running out of the house while it was burning with her children left behind. I mean, the BOK Center was behind schedule, it was over budget, and she left because she saw that tax revenues in the economy in Tulsa was going south, heading into 2008, 2009. And she left Tulsa in the lurch, and our Mayor Bartlett came in and did a good job of turning things around, and he deserves to be reelected. And I'll just stop and step up on my high horse just a second here on that subject. I realize that you guys aren't constituents in Tulsa County, but it's incredibly important that we win that race. It's incredibly important that we win that race because I'm hearing a lot of this chatter. Well, I'm sick and tired of voting for the lesser of two evils. The problem is when we don't show up to vote, you end up with the evilest of evils. Okay? You end up with the evilest of evils when you don't. That's exactly what happened with our presidential race. You look at the fact that we had 14 million people that didn't show up at the polls, and we have what we have. And I don't buy into the fact, I did not vote for Romney in the presidential election, but I did it in the general. And the reason why is you cannot convince me that he was even close to what our current president stands for. Not even close. Okay? And so our biggest challenge as a party is, number one, complacency, but number two, infighting. We've got to come together, and we've got to support each other in the general elections and swallow our pride and move on. And it's the nature of politics. That's the way it is, and we have to support each other. I mean, fight things out if you feel like, I have people come to me all the time griping about this person or that person and what's going on with that individual, and my response is, well, if you don't like it, put on your big boy pants and run for office. do it. Stop griping and do something about it. If you think you can do a better job, that's what competition's all about. I've yet to see one of those individuals take me up on my offer, though. Okay? And so that being said, I come back to, President Oklahoma can have a major impact upon our presidential race. And I'm going to give you a long shot option, and I'm going to give you a viable option for us in which we can do that. Number one, the Southern Republican Leadership Conference, of which Oklahoma is a member of the Southern region of the Republican National Committee. The Southern Republican Leadership Conference is kind of the equivalent of CPAC on steroids, and it always serves as kind of the kickoff to the presidential primary season. I want to position Oklahoma in 2015 to host that. I was in Birmingham, Alabama 2.5 weeks ago, and with my fellow chairman of the Southern region, I broached the idea, and it was very enthusiastically received. Those guys want to come to Oklahoma. They want to see what we're about. They realize we're the reddest of the red. They realize that we have an unrivaled pedigree when it comes to presidential politics. Okay? And it's my goal and my hope that we can position Oklahoma to host the Southern Republican Leadership Conference, because what that's going to do is set an environment for a conservative to have the momentum coming out of the, or heading into the primary season. And the individual that's getting the headlines and winning the straw polls and giving the great speeches at that and getting the great applause at that is the individual that's going to become the favorite at it. Very similar to what happened with Governor Huckabee back in 2007 when he won the Iowa straw poll. Nobody gave him a snowball's chance in Hades until that happened, and then he kind of moved up into front-runner status. Okay? So that's a legitimate option for us to have an influence upon the presidential selection process. Here's the longer shot, but probably the one that most needs to happen, and we're going to fight the good fight on it. Our presidential primary system is broken. Pure and simple, it's broken. It's not working. And I was very encouraged by the fact that 6-7 weeks ago, when our national chairman was in Oklahoma City, and he put on a press conference prior to that, had lunch with him, and he brought up, before I had a chance to bring it up, he brought up the fact, I believe that the presidential preference primary system is broken and we must fix it. So now the only question is this: do we use baling wire or do we have wholesale change? I'm going to push for wholesale change. Here's what I would propose. We need to start rewarding the states and the regions that are producing for us in the general. Right now, we are basically just entitling a group of 4 states that don't produce at all. They're not reliable. New Hampshire is a liberal state, never produces for us anymore. Iowa has not come through for us in a long time. South Carolina, yeah, they are, but they kind of lean moderate. Florida is unreliable. Those are the 4 states that establish all the momentum heading into Super Tuesday, and once a candidate comes out of Super Tuesday, they are very seldom derailed from the nomination. And so that being said, we need to change up the formula. Here's how we do that. Here's what I would propose. Looking at performances of the regions, it typically goes Southern, Midwestern, Western, Northeast. Oklahoma is typically going to be your best performing state out of the Southern region. Kansas is typically going to be your best performing state out of the Midwest. Utah is typically going to be your best performing state out of the Western region. And Pennsylvania is typically going to be your best performing state out of the Northeast. Have Oklahoma, Kansas, Utah, and Pennsylvania go first. Establish the momentum. Then you move into a Super Tuesday format in the South for 2 weeks, take a week off. Go to the Midwest, 2 weeks, take a week off. West, 2 weeks, take a week off. Northeast, 2 weeks, take a week off. That, in my opinion, is going to do a better job of helping us secure a conservative nominee that will stand for what's right, what we believe as a party. A bit of our problem is we've allowed the RNC and the presidential selection process to be controlled by what I consider to be Northeast moderates. Nothing against them. I'm happy to work with them. But their brand of politics isn't working for us anymore. It's time to change. Okay? You know, what is it? I think Einstein said it's insanity to keep repeating the same processes over and over again and expecting a different result. Well, that's exactly where we are. So overall, that's kind of our blueprint for where we want to go, but it starts with boots on the ground. It starts with rebuilding our grassroots and getting that up and going, because we've got to have those people, we've got to have the manpower in order to meet the Obama machine. Obama is not acting like a president that is going to ride off into the sunset, period. Now, I don't know exactly what that means. Don't want to speculate on it. But I've never seen a president this far into their second term act the way that he is. Organizing for America is alive and well. As we're speaking, they're going door to door, registering voters, doing voter ID. They are moving forward. Okay? We've uncovered some trends, and we're in the process of researching it, of how the Democrats are targeting the urban areas. They're going to give up on the rural areas, I think, but they're targeting the urban areas. We're going to have to be ready to step up and meet that challenge, because if we let Congress go back to the Democrats, I'm fearful for our republic. I'm fearful for the direction that we'll go. And really, ultimately, the main thing that is going to pull our country out of the quagmire that we're headed for is growth in our economy. Growth in our economy is the key. It's the oil and gas industry right now that is bailing out our economy as we speak.
Over and over again.
Okay, it is. It's the oil and gas. And, well, Harold Hamm, Continental Resources, formerly out of Enid, now out of Oklahoma City, wrote an article, I believe it was 18 months ago, in the Wall Street Journal. And that article basically said this: if the federal government would allow for drilling on public lands, the royalties from such would repay our national debt within 10 years. It's that type of policy, not windmills and solar panels, that are going to get us where we need to be. Okay? And so we've got to have a good conservative candidate in the White House that understands business, that understands taxation principles, that understands cutting
spending,
expenses, so that we can grow our way out of this, because that's the only way that I see. Now, every solution that is, not every problem is going to be fixed with legislation. I just want to stop and say that. Okay? Not every problem that we face is going to be fixed with legislation. Okay? There are moral issues that our country faces as well, that I don't know that I necessarily need to address that, but
yes,
there are moral problems that have to be fixed that are only going to come from renewal within our country. And while I'll go ahead and say this: America is unequivocally a Christian nation. We were founded by Christians, plain and simple, and there is no other religion that would have founded our society. It wouldn't have come from a Buddhist. It wouldn't have come from a Muslim. It wouldn't have come from just about any other religion. It certainly wouldn't have come from an atheist. Okay?
If my people who are called by my name repent and turn from their wicked ways. So if you don't deal with the moral issues,
right,
we're going to continue to go down, because we are stuck in greed, and
right,
we are stuck in the wrong kind of thinking.
Amen. I agree. We can't legislate that, but we can encourage it. And that's another role that is going to come outside of our government, outside of our legislature.
It needs to start happening.
And I believe that the moral downfall that we have seen happened 50, 60 years ago, and we're beginning to reap the benefits of that. But I'm not, I can preach a sermon if you guys want me to.
You're absolutely right on that.
I can preach a really good one, but I'm going to spare you guys that because, all right, thank you. I know that I have a tendency to drone on. So, what you guys handed out the cards, thank you, John. I tend to forget this. And I also need to introduce one other individual who came here with me this evening. I'm kind of bad about acknowledging that. That's Robert Airy. He's in the back. And Robert Airy is our Northeast District field rep, and he's doing a fabulous job for us. Yes, he's a holdover from Matt's tenure. And I can just say that I'm blessed to have great people to work with like John and like Robert. We just try to keep Connor away from the fire alarms. That's an inside joke that I can tell you about later on, but anyway, I got to pick on him a little bit too. But anyway, all that being said, if you guys, we gave you a card. If you would, begin filling that out for me, because we would just like to have a record of your attendance. If you don't have one, raise your hand, and we'll be sure and get you one. And no, I'm not going to do an altar call, although I feel kind of challenged to do that at times. But if you would, go ahead and fill out the front part of that. And I want to close with a poem that was written by Josiah Gilbert Holland. And Josiah Gilbert Holland is kind of become unknown to us in this day and age. But he was a contemporary of Emily Dickinson in the 1850s and 1860s. He was a rather prolific author at that point in time, fairly popular. He wrote a poem in the days leading up to the Civil War, and it goes like this. "O God, give us men for a time like this demands. Strong minds, true faith, great hearts, ready hands. Men whom the lust of office does not kill. Men whom the spoils of office cannot buy. Men who possess opinions and a will. Men who have honor. Men who will not lie. Men who can stand before a demagogue and damn his treacherous flatteries without winking. Tall men, sun-crowned, who live above the fog in public duty and in private thinking. For while the rabble with their thumbborn creeds, their large professions, and their petty little deeds mingle in selfish strife, lo, freedom weeps. Wrong rules the land, and weighty justice sleeps. O God, give us men and women for a time like this demands." And those words that were written 150, 160 years ago are just as true today. And we need men and we need women who will step forward and courageously place their name on the ballot and run for office. And I'm just going to stop right there and talk to you. Had the privilege of working with Congressman Bridenstine and Congressman Langford. And I cannot tell you, especially in the meetings that I did with James, when we would talk about running for office, how many times individuals would come up to him and cry. And they would cry because they would say, "I felt the call of God upon my life to run for office, and I didn't do it. And it's one of the biggest regrets of my life." And what I can tell you is this. Running for office is probably one of the most challenging things that I think an individual ever does. But I also have the experience to say that it's probably one of the most rewarding things that you can ever do as well. Because you meet some great values people. And so we need men and women to step up and courageously place their name on the ballot. And some of you in here may have that call, feel that call upon you. Some of you have already answered that call. Okay? Some of you may know people who need to answer that call. Now's the time to do it. Now's the time to get those people on the ballot. For the school board races, for the city council races, for the courthouse races, for the state house and the state senate races. Those are important calls. But not only, maybe you don't have that call, but maybe you know those individuals I'm talking about that do. More than anything, they need your support. And they need your arms and your legs and your back and your finger in the cauliflower ear for making the phone calls that can help. But also, they need your financial support. And I'm a huge proponent of the sustaining donor. The sustaining donor, as I define, is the $20 donor, the $10 donor. They're probably more important to a campaign than the large dollar donors are, in large part because of this. I believe that the sustaining donor is worth 20 votes to a campaign. Because not only do you get their vote, they're no longer a free agent, but those individuals become an advocate for the campaign. And you also get friends and family, and you get Sunday school, people that they go to Sunday school with and co-workers, that kind of stuff. And the sustaining donor is incredibly important. And I've seen those sustaining donors be very important to James Langford. I've seen those sustaining donors be incredibly important to Jim Bridenstine. I've seen those. I was telling this story the week after I was elected. I was in Stillwater, and I ran across Congressman Watkins. He congratulated me on my election. We were talking shop a little bit. He's like, "Share your vision with me," and I'm talking to him about what I've done and what my theories and philosophies are. And he stopped me when I was talking about small sustaining donors. He said, "It works. David, it works." I go, "What do you mean?" He goes, "My campaign, when I first ran for Congress, set the national record for the number of donors to a campaign. Time Magazine ran a feature article on his campaign and the fact that he had more donors than any other federal campaign I've ever received. So it worked for Wes Watkins, worked for James Langford, worked for Jim Bridenstine. It can work for you too. Okay? But I think I would be remiss. Why are we here? We're here to talk to you guys, to give you hope and encouragement, and to build up the party. But I think I'd be remiss, I'd be kind of a hypocrite if I preach small donors on a campaign level and sustaining donors on a campaign level if I didn't also believe in that at the party level. I can get all the $1,000, $5,000 donors I want out of Tulsa and Oklahoma City, but this is the Oklahoma Republican Party. It's not the Metropolitan Republican Party. And I believe that we should be represented by everyone here. And so what I'd like you to do also is on the back of your card, think and pray about helping us out with as little as $8.25 a month. That's $99 a year. It's our goal to build up the sustaining donors of our party. Because I had a lady stop me when we were in Hugo, and she just said, well, if you know James Langford so well, why don't you just ask him for $200,000? He can get it for you. Here's the problem. Number one, he can't give me $200,000 legally. Number two, I don't want to be beholden to anyone for that. Because rightfully, if somebody's giving that much money to an institution, they should expect something of value from that. And so that being said, I don't want to be overly. What if James draws a primary opponent? I'm supposed to be non-biased in a primary as the chairman. And so that being said, I don't want to just focus on the large, $1,000+ donors. Now, if you want to give $1,000, hey, we'll take it. All right. But really, what I'd like to talk to you about is, would you join our Minuteman program, $8.25 a month, and go from there? And so, that being said, I know I've kind of gone over a little bit into your time, and I know you guys are going to hear from Congressman Bridenstine in his office, and all of that. But if you guys would, go ahead and finish completing those cards. We're going to be here for another 10 minutes. We're going to have to go before your county meeting. But thank you so much for being so attentive, for being responsive, and for laughing at my dumb jokes. I know my daughter told me, she said, Dad, don't quit your day job. Don't try to do stand-up because you're not cut out for it. But anyway, we certainly enjoy this. And if you got questions, I'll kind of take them at the back of the room here while Congressman Bridenstine is speaking. I'm happy to address that. So thank you very much.